Welcome to the Indian Journal of Law and Public Policy podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second season of the IGLPP podcast. I'm your host Pranav Tawar, consulting editor at IGLPP. Here we discuss major happenings of the legal and policy field. Today, for the fifth episode, we have a very special guest and a very interesting field of law to discuss. Mr. Tarun Singh, Assistant Professor Research at Gujarat National Law University and member at GNLU Center for Sports and Entertainment Law. And we are going to discuss sports law with him. Thank you, Mr. Tarun, for taking out time, and I welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much, Pranav. It feels so great to talk to you after, I think, 5 years or something. Last time I think we met was 2015. For everybody, Pranav and I are from the same university. So it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward.
And as a disclaimer, I am an Arsenal fan and Mr. Tarun is actually a Real Madrid fan. So if you hear me share anything about, how Aubameyang is best in EPL, or hear Mr. Tarun defend how Hazard is not a bad signing, you know why it was said.
So that's true, but there is no comparison. I don't know why are you comparing Real Madrid and Arsenal, because there is no comparison at all. So don't even try that. Don't even demean us.
How will you judge this season for Galacticos? A mixed year perhaps, right? You won the league but couldn't go through with UCL.
Then there is no competition. We are giving opportunities to other people to, at least come close to us, which I don't think so is going to happen specifically by an English club.
Only team playing in Europe Cup right now from England is Arsenal's women team. So I'm just proud about that.
You can tell this to yourself to make yourself happy, and I'm sure it's working for you. But let's not compare Real Madrid and Arsenal. It's terrible for us. Please don't do that.
Okay. Personally, I have never been a fan of clubs which have huge wealth in top tier teams in Europe. But, for whatever dislike I may have for Real Madrid, I will have to accept they have embarrassed clubs in last few years. So many UCL titles and then consecutive titles too. But,
I want this line to, go viral. This should be the line of the show where an Arsenal fan is saying that Real Madrid is the best club. Thank you. Thank you very much.
In the last few years, they certainly have embarrassed other clubs by winning so many UCL titles. So, but one thing that goes another way with Real Madrid and England is their ability to handle England, the players which come from EPL. So, you handled Ronaldo and even Bale so well initially, but now Hazard is underperforming and Bale is preferring, golf over Real Madrid. So,
Let's see. I think Real Madrid has to do some kind of thinking in terms of Hazard and Bale. And let's just see. I'm very hopeful that next season, we'll get all the trophies that we run for. And I can just keep my fingers crossed. Yeah.
So I wish we could carry on with that conversation.
For some other podcast, maybe.
Yeah, right. So let's switch from your fan side to the professional side of sports. So beginning with a slight background to your professional life before we move to legal developments, we know you are a die-hard fan of football and passionately follow other sports too. What was the thing that made you pick it up on the professional side as well?
So Pranav, I've always been a sports enthusiast, and I've been actually very lucky because my father, my mother and my sister are huge sports fans as well. My mother and my sister played professional sport for some time. My father was very encouraging actually when it comes to sports and outdoor activities. And at the UG level and the PG level, I represented my universities in football, as you mentioned before. So this love, I thought that this love for sport and my education, which was law, why not mix this up, my passion and my education. So here I am, been more than 4 years now into academics. It's been very exciting. I've met some very exciting people, professionals and students who share the same passion. So, the journey has been beautiful.
Recently, you also posted on LinkedIn and you also submitted a research report to the legal department of Government of Gujarat about sports governance and policy in India. So if you could tell us more about it and if possible, any findings in it?
So what we did was that we took 14 Olympic playing nations apart from India, since 1992, and we put them into type A, type B and type C categories in terms of the medals they've won and their growth. And we had these 6 indicators, administrative indicators, which were, about their process, what kind of transparency they have, what kind of structures they have, and we compared it with the Indian structure. And then in the end of the report, we have said that what kind of things Indian sports industry can take from these these international teams or these international nations, these nations, I'm sorry, and see how we can modify and put these things in the Indian context. So the report is huge. If anybody wants to have a read, they can write to me and I can share the report with them. But it was a very, very good journey, very enriching one actually.
Okay, so sounds really intensive work and interesting, and I think it's a very fascinating opportunity to interact with government. So now, moving on to the more basic of the sports law. Even for me, I'm a complete novice in this field. I probably understand it from arbitration and dispute resolution purposes, but that too limitedly. So if you could, explain what does sports law as an academic and as a branch of legal profession entail. So why I'm saying it's if I were to do some course in this area, what are the main issue areas, laws, or authorities one gets to learn in this field of law?
So sports law, Pranav, actually covers issues that arise while preparing and executing a sporting event. To keep it very simple, there can be contractual issues. The transfer market is on, as you know, and everybody who follows football, the transfer market is on. So a lot of contractual matters come up. You've got doping issues, gender inequality, the US women's soccer team case. Is a must read in this area, and so on and so forth. And because sports law is a mixture of various laws and how they operate in a sporting environment, it is imperative to have a decent amount of grip on other law subjects, and that is something that I want to tell every sports law enthusiast out there. We have got a very wrong perception that if we know sports law, that's more than enough. No, it doesn't function that way. If you don't have a decent amount of grip on other law subjects, and other law subjects I mean contracts, human rights, so on and so forth, it will be a very, very turbulent ride. And I'm saying this out of a personal experience, because I faced the same problem when I thought of pursuing sports law. I was not very good at a lot of subjects, and now when I want to write something or read about it, or have to go for a lecture, I find myself in a very uncomfortable space because I'm not very aware of the basics of that particular law. So I urge everybody to have some kind, I'm not saying you have to have an in-depth knowledge of each and every subject, it's next to impossible, but to have that basic understanding of all the law subjects that are taught to you in your law schools, which is very important.
Clearly, it seems a very vibrant and cross-sectional nature with other disciplines. So one thing that you talked about was the gender gap issue in America, and we saw the campaign by Megan Rapinoe in the FIFA World Cup as well. So you have written pieces on the gender gap in payment or participation in sports, and also about intergender matches. If you could brief on the issue areas when we talk about this, because a lot of people take it directly to the feminism issue, but I think it's much more broad than that. And what do you think are the solutions on it?
The issue has a lot to do with society, Pranav, and how we perceive women's sports. We have to remove participation barriers. I'm not very sure how many people, and I'm not going to talk about the villages or the semi-urban areas of the nation. I'm going to talk about the urban areas as well. So I am not very sure about how many people promote their daughters, their wives, their daughters and their wives to play sport. And that has been a major issue. That has been the major issue, and because of that, there have been investment issues that needs to be taken care of. You have to remove participation barriers, as I mentioned. A lot of grassroots awareness needs to be done. Money needs to be put in so that women's sport can be can reach to that that profit, and women's sport becomes a profit earning entity, which you look at the IPL and the ISL, big money is involved. And wherever possible, as you mentioned before, promote mixed gender leagues. And when I say mixed gender leagues, I'm not only talking about male and female, but I'm also talking about the third gender, which is very important now. You have to bring all these three together and do these mixed gender league wherever possible. I understand there are few sport where maybe right now we are not ready for mixed gender leagues, but wherever possible, we also have mixed gender matches. You've got in tennis and badminton. Recently in India, the Northeast Futsal League was a mixed gender league. And such in tournaments are very interesting. They're very profitable because they're very unique in nature, and it helps in skill development. A lot of people say that women and men's sports cannot happen together because there's a huge skill the skill levels are very different, and I understand, maybe to some extent this might be correct. But if if it's correct, why not come together and try to improve each other's skill? And these mixed gender leagues are very, very important for that. So ideas are there, Pranav, and I hope to see women's sports reaching to the to the top. It's going to be a long journey. The women's US women's soccer team did it. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the desired result. But I think at least it set the ball rolling, which is very important. The debate has to be there, and I think now. After so many years of independence in India, after so many years of humanity for that matter, we have to come out of this taboo where, women's sport is not taken very seriously.
Okay, so I think you talked about two major issues which acts as barrier for women or intergender matches, including third gender, which is awareness, and second is the profit side as to promotion of their games. But there is one article which you wrote for IGLPP itself about biased media coverage of women's sports. So if you could just enlighten how media is also playing an active role in not promoting women's role in sports.
Yeah, so this is for everybody who watches this podcast. I'll request everyone to just pick up any newspaper or open any media channel. I'm talking about domestic, I'm not going to go into international. Even international, the situation is quite similar. And see how much of women's sport is covered. How much was, for example, all women's tournament is covered in India. And one will understand what kind of coverage is there. There have been a number of studies by various organizations, various universities. I don't have the exact data now, but I think the coverage, goes to, if you compare the men's and the women's coverage, I think the whole air time which a particular channel gets, only 2% or 3% of that time is given to women's sport, which is absolutely how should I put it? It's very sad. So media has a very important role to play in terms of grassroots, in terms of reaching out to people, telling them about what women's sport is. You see, let's just take an example of the IPL. See what kind of media rights, media houses get, put in to get the rights to showcase IPL. The same amount of enthusiasm has to be shown for women's sport. And I understand a lot of people say, or a lot of media houses also say that we don't do it because there is no fan following. But as far as the data is there, I don't think the fan following is so low. I can speak of the I think, if I'm not wrong, the 2015 US versus Japan football match, if I'm not wrong, or the Women's FIFA World Cup. I think it was the highest watched match in the history of US sport. Though I want to confirm this data, but I think this was the data. So the whole fan love for a particular thing, or the following for a particular thing, I don't think it's so low. Media houses have to play a very active role in this, and I'm sure they will. As soon as you start thinking that women's sport is also a huge, it's a very profitable it's a very profitable entity. I think everybody will start showing their interest in that.
See, one of the issues when we talk about gender in other laws is about neutrality of laws with respect to gender. So you must have interacted with must have expose yourself to different sports laws. So do you think that law in itself are still not centric to such kind of intergender matches or role of women in sports as well?
Yeah, of course. Look, at the end of the day, sport is something that comes out of the society, and if society in general thinks that a number of laws, let's just say the gender oriented laws are not very are not very societal friendly, then it's going to impact sports as well. So as soon as you make these amendments, these important amendments in laws which can impact society, which helps women have their rights, I think it's going to automatically help women athletes as well. So for example, whether it's sexual harassment laws or any other law for that matter, if we strengthen those laws for general public, it's going to help the athletes as well, because athletes come from from the society itself.
So you talked about the relevance of awareness, and I think awareness as an argument is very foundational and very much important for reforms in any field. So one petition was actually filed in the Supreme Court for consideration of sports as a fundamental right under Article 21A of the Constitution, and you mentioned the same in the article which I mentioned that you wrote for IGLPP. And for the listeners, you must check it out on our featured blog articles. It's a fantastic piece on biased media coverage, and I will attach actually the link in the description too. So now coming back to the question of awareness, how relevant do you feel such kind of petitions are, and do you see such any merit in declaring sports as a fundamental right?
Very relevant and extremely important, Pranav. What has happened is that unfortunately till now sports is only considered to be a source of entertainment and leisure, and the kind of seriousness it deserves hasn't been given to sports. And a lot of people say that it's only about entertainment and leisure. Actually, sports defines cultures. Look at the European football. We were discussing Arsenal, a country which is miles away from India. A city, which is miles away from India. Real Madrid, is miles away from India. But both of us today, started the podcast with the friendly banter of Arsenal and Real Madrid. So it's not just an entertainment source. It defines us, and look how the European football scene is. Even in India, for that matter, we saw fans, heartbreaks of fans when Dhoni announced his retirement recently. We saw how proud we were when PV Sindhu or Mary Kom won medal at the Olympics for us. I mean, this is not because of entertainment, for people. They connect, and the connect is very deep and intense, and this connection has to be promoted. And I think this petition, bringing sports under 21A is something which is a brick in developing, in the development of this, in promotion of this love for sport. And I want to see how we take up. I think the new education policy has a lot of it speaks a lot about sports and promotion of sports in school and college level, and this can only be done when such kind of such seriousness is attached to it, and putting it under law, I think, will bring that kind of seriousness.
So one question which has been like a constant for me in all episodes of second season is the impact of coronavirus. So in European football or elsewhere in any sport, we are seeing new initiatives to mold how sports are played. Even chess tournaments are now happening online. So what is your opinion and observations on the impact of COVID on sports?
It has been very detrimental. Like every other industry, sport has also suffered due to COVID. Livelihood issues have come in. I'm not talking about elite athletes here, though they've also suffered. So I don't want to make, I don't want to create that difference. But we have a huge chunk of athletes whose future seems to be quite unpredictable because of COVID. The Olympics were postponed. A number of other tournaments have been postponed. One of the biggest, celebration, which is the IPL in India, that has been postponed. That has been taken to not postponed. Now the venue has been shifted to UAE. It was postponed earlier, and now it's going to happen in UAE. So the Indian sporting industry is on a halt right now, which is not good at all. The government, the private bodies, Pranav, the federations now have to develop a vision plan so that damage control can be done. It was unexpected. Nobody had control over it. But let's just be honest that the government structures in sports need serious attention. And I'm not talking about now because COVID has hit. In general, also it needs a lot of attention. Liquidation is a problem. We don't have liquid money to pump into the sporting industry. The federations were not ready for such kind of situation. Corruption is a major issue that is there in the governance structure, and it's not only about sports; it's for any governance structure for that matter. But because we're speaking about sports, but COVID and now has forced us to take these issues very seriously. I'm looking forward as to what will be done and how will we respond to it. But this is the time to create new models and it's a best opportunity for everyone to give sports governance a new look, which will help all the stakeholders, the athletes specifically, the support staff, which we, unfortunately we forget about them, the coaches, the ball boy, the ball girl, or any other staff for that matter. I don't see people debating about their livelihoods. An athlete, has an opportunity in terms of advertisement or in terms of media appearances, and that is it's still continuing on various online platforms. But think about a coach who has no other, no other qualification but to be a coach. There are a number of coaches now, who have lost their jobs, and we don't know if they will ever get it or how soon they'll get it. So this scenario right now is extremely troublesome, but it has opened a lot of opportunities for us to revisit our governance structure.
Okay, so talking about this, looking back at our governance structure, do you think, for example, why I'm asking this question is that when we talk about some other field of law, we are seeing amendments and ordinances coming out in order to support different sectors. I was talking to Mr. Sagar Singham City just in our last episode about how in aviation sector they are providing different kinds of bailout packages. So, but we are not seeing similar kind of, neither government support nor, I don't it may be because of my limited knowledge, neither any activism on the side of sports to ask for a support from the government. Is there any projection of such COVID slowdown on sports law as well, and can these bailout packages help?
Of course, if there is a bailout package, it's going. I think there is one which I just got to know about recently. I was reading for another panel discussion that I was on. That there are some packages which the government has announced. I don't know how far we have reached in terms of implementation. Another important thing, which you mentioned, the federations and the associations have to play a major role now. They have to be strengthened. The right people have to be, put in places so that they can come up and develop an internal revenue generation forum. You've got the BCCI, for example. You see what amount of money it makes. So I'm very sure that a lot of elite athletes, in terms of elite cricket, when I say athletes, I mean cricket. I meant cricketers. They might not face that kind of situation, which maybe somebody who plays kabaddi, not at the elite level but at the domestic level, has to face. So it's not only about the government packages, but the federations and the associations also have to step in now. I want to really see what the government package is going to be in terms of sport. Right now, I can't recall of any, but if there is any, I want to see how it gets implemented and how it helps our athletes and our support staff.
So, as the last question of this podcast, a lot is happening in the sports field, and you yourself has been very active in this field. So what are the future projects and areas you are planning to work on?
First of all, by January and February, I have to finish my second master's, which is going on, which is another LLM in sports law and practice from De Montfort. So that is my major project which I have to finish. Recently, I've got another grant from the government of Gujarat to work on a project which is on athlete legal education program. So that's another project that I'm working on. Regularly, I'm trying to write papers in the area of sports law and policy. And I'm looking actually for collaboration. So, through this podcast, if anybody, whoever listens to this podcast or any sports law enthusiast out there, if you want to collaborate for any article, for any research project, I'll be more than happy to do that. So, I'm looking forward for such collaborations.
So I think those are very really exciting ideas that you are going to work in, and it's much anticipated as well, especially in the field of sports. So I'm sure people interested in the field would love to follow up on your work and contact you in case they want to collaborate on any research project.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward.
Okay, so I think on that note we can end this podcast unless you have anything to say. In conclusion,
I have one thing to say, that before you end this podcast, you have to shout Hala Madrid for everybody and specifically for me.
No, I can't. See, I'm the host of the podcast. I decide what has to be discussed. This is
Perfect. It was a pleasure, Pranav. Thank you, everybody. all the members of team IJLPP. It was absolutely a pleasure and an honor.
Thanks to our listeners for listening to this week's episode at the IGLPP podcast. We really enjoyed talking to Mr. Tarun about a very important and interesting side of the law. We especially liked when he talked about the vibrancy in the field, about contractual obligations, doping, gender equality, and especially about promotion of mixed gender league with inclusion of third gender. So for more legal readings, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit iglpp.com. We are into our 12th issue and volume 7. Issue 1 is now accepting entries. Check our website to know more details on submissions. May Arsenal win this Premier League. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Do not forget to check our website for more updates and legal articles. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. See you next time.